So, when I was a kid, my family didn't do back-to-school shopping for clothes. Sometimes I got my clothes from the town dump on Maui, in Hawaii, where I grew up. One time I found this shirt that I really loved. It had a pattern of pears, grapes, peaches, and plums all over it. The only thing wrong with it was this tiny stain. So I took the shirt home and washed it and tried to get the stain out, but I couldn't. I was so excited about the shirt that I decided to wear it to school the next day anyway. Turned out another girl in my class had thrown it out the week before. It was a really painful moment for me. I was suddenly a known trash picker, and this became a stigma that I had to live with. But it taught me a lot about our relationship to waste. In fact, I think that experience with that shirt revealed to me a root cause of some major environmental and societal problems. So now as an artist, I've chosen to examine that very same conflict in our perception of matter. Can artists serve a significant role in terms of solving societal and environmental problems? The answer is yes. Artists have historically served as the eyes of society. The impulse to make a piece of art is precisely the opposite of the impulse to throw something away. I practice revealing the hidden value and potential in trash by working with the vehicles and packages that deliver the things we desire to us. This piece, for example, is called Scrutiny on the Bounty, and it's made from excess packaging. My goal in making art is to reveal, to give people an opportunity to reflect on their own perception of value, so that we can all recognize that it isn't just the letter, but the envelope that's a gift. In fact, all of this is. Waste is merely displaced abundance. Giving thought and attention and energy to matter is what makes something a piece of art and not a piece of trash. Those wrappers that we let seduce us, then ignore and throw away, well, if we treat discarded matter with energy and give it attention and effort, we'll start to remember that all matter matters. So through my art, I've been learning how to transform my own negative experiences into things that resonate with a positive frequency. When I was a kid, I had these recurring nightmares. They were basically this never-ending looping knot that continued in every direction. And from the negative spaces in these knots, these blobs would form and grow. I felt like they were going to suffocate me. So when I started my practice full-time, I actually started by making paintings of those nightmares. I think of them as immersive landscape paintings. But really what I'm doing is using the formal structure of those nightmares to create harmonious compositions. So some pain, like the pain of childbirth, has a purpose. Sometimes just a bit of time needs to pass in order for that purpose to be revealed to us. So in retrospect, I look back on my somewhat challenging childhood, and I'm actually grateful that I had to go through some of that, and I'm definitely grateful that I had those nightmares. But when it comes to trash, plastic is one of our biggest collective nightmares right now. 70% of commercially produced plastics, when submerged in water, will sink to the bottom. That means that what we're seeing swirling around in our oceanic gyres and washing ashore on our beaches really only represents about 30% of what's in there. 100 million tons of plastic are produced every year, and about 10% of that ends up in our oceans. That's 10 million tons of plastic a year. Scientists estimate that about 20% of that is coming from ships and barges that are just dumping it right in there. They're just dumping it right in. That means 80% is coming from our rivers, from our shores, and from people like you and me, not being quite as careful in our handling of this material as we should be. So, the majority of commercial plastics, they're petroleum-based, and they're manufactured with toxic additives, things like bisphenol A or BPA, which you might have heard of. Some of them are carcinogens, obesogens, endocrine disruptors. They cause neurological problems. Some are even linked to decreased penis sizes. Others are linked to things like attention deficit disorder, which might be part of why it's so difficult for very many of us to focus on this depressing problem. So If you're like me, you've noticed that pretty much everything we come into contact with now is wrapped in some kind of thin, clear, shiny plastic membrane. PET plastic like this is designed to last anywhere from 100 to 1,000 years when it's left in our natural environment. That means it has what's called, in my line of work, archival integrity. So, I think it's fair to say that plastic is causing a global nightmare, and art is a global language. So for the past decade, I've been exploring this material as an art medium. Here's the first scale model I created for a bank in 2007. And here's the piece. It's made from bottles that were taken directly from the bank's own recycling bins. And I did it that way because I really wanted the employees who worked at this bank to have a personal relationship with the piece when it was finished. And it's about 65 feet long. This one is made from bottles that were cleaned up directly from the streets of New York City. And when I created it, I was thinking a lot about this immersive, vast internal landscape of our own bodies, these delicate vessels that carry us through our lives. This is another scale model, and here's the piece. This one's only 13 feet in diameter. And at night, it uses solar power to light up and rotate very, very slowly. So you might notice, this was like 115 feet or something, you might notice that a lot of my work with plastic waste is suspended. And there's a reason for that. I'm trying to shift people's perception of this material we think of as garbage, as waste, as without value. So in order to do that, I'm trying to shift people's physical posture so that they look up and become more receptive, more reflective, and more optimistic. Because I think all of those things might be helpful if we're going to overcome this plastic pollution problem we've landed in. So here's a detail of another piece. And here's the piece. It's only 9 feet tall. Because they don't have to be so big and, to have a massive impact. Sometimes it's these small, seemingly inconsequential decisions we make on a daily basis, these little whispers to ourselves that are having massive and profound impacts on ourselves, each other, and the world around us. You might remember a couple years ago, Tropicana orange juice switched from cardboard cartons to plastic bottles. Well, I was 8 months pregnant at the time, and they had these massive billboards everywhere celebrating their new look. They were charging more money for less juice in these incredibly thick bottles that were designed to last essentially forever. So of course I had to make a sculpture out of them, right? But on principle, I also had to boycott their products. So at 8 months pregnant, I went fishing through people's recycling bins, looking for Tropicana bottles. I made this one sculpture. It's not very big, and it's called Pulp Fiction. So this piece is actually made from a whole different kind of plastic waste. This one is made from plastic trash that washed ashore at Camilo Point, the southernmost tip of the Big Island in Hawaii. Now, the Hawaii Wildlife Fund is an organization who's been conducting coastal cleanups there for 10 years now. And on their first cleanup, they got 50 tons of plastic trash from all over the world. Hawaii is getting trashed. This is not Hawaiian trash, but Hawaii is getting trashed. I'm not okay with that. Are you okay with that? I don't think that's cool. So I got to make this piece, and these two organizations, the Waimea Ocean Film Festival and the Sculpt the Future Foundation, both got together and sponsored my trip to Hawaii so I could make this piece. And it meant a lot to me. But I decided I wanted to do something a little bit more than just make a piece of art about this. I decided that when that piece sells, I want all the profits to go to keep cleaning that beach in Hawaii and keep raising awareness about plastic pollution there. And I also felt like I can't be the only human being on this planet who is wanting to do something about this. So I started reaching out and finding other architects and artists and designers around the planet who are also actively intercepting the plastic waste stream in their work. And as a result, I formed a not-for-profit organization called Project Vortex. My goal with Project Vortex is essentially to merge some of these voices who are engaged in this discussion so that we can be amplified and hopefully become more effective by working together. So last year, the Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens in Columbus, Ohio, helped sponsor the creation of another piece that fits into this Project Vortex model. This piece is 16 feet long, and it's made from 1,000 bottles cleaned up from the rivers in Columbus, Ohio. At night, it uses solar-powered fiber optics to illuminate and shift in color. And when this piece sells, all the profits will go to keep cleaning the rivers in Columbus and raising awareness about plastic pollution there. And that's essentially how the Project Vortex model is designed to work. So here are some examples of some of the other interceptors, people who are intercepting this plastic waste stream and are on the Project Vortex website and what they're doing with plastic waste. And we all make work out of plastic debris, and we all use our work to help benefit nature and clean up our waterways. And scientists around the world pretty much unanimously agree that the #1 step in solving this problem is to stop the flow of plastic to our oceans. So Project Vortex is determined to try to help do that by both restricting it, redirecting it, and probably, I think most importantly, by shifting people's perception of this material. So it's a growing network, and I welcome nominations. If anyone knows of anyone doing this, please contact me. But there's this kind of David and Goliath-esque aspect to it. It's really hard and depressing for me sometimes. So, say I'm able to find 1,000 incredible artists around the planet who are doing work with this material to connect with. That might do a little bit of good. It may raise some awareness and money, but it seems like such a small drop in such a big bucket. So, so last year, something amazing happened that gave me a ton of hope. I was invited to design and teach a course at Mary Baldwin College in Stanton, Virginia. Now, Mary Baldwin is a small liberal arts school. It's not an art school. They don't have a sculpture program, no sculpture studio, nothing like that. But, I had 3 weeks. It was a crash course in the spring, and 17 college students, from freshman to senior. So I gave them just one assignment. I said, I want you to take any kind of garbage, it doesn't have to be plastic, and transform it into one piece of art that cannot be confused with garbage under any circumstances. So the students, as soon as they registered, they started collecting trash. And on the second day of class, we did a river cleanup. But right before the river cleanup, I told the students that they each had to find at least one piece of garbage from inside this creek, this river that we cleaned, to integrate into their sculptures in order to pass the course. And what this did was it radically changed the dynamic of the river cleanup. It went from what would have been a depressing archaeology of human slovenliness to a treasure hunt, with the added benefit of really cleaning that river. So, I should mention that at a glance, this stretch of river looked perfectly fine. It didn't look bad at all. But in our 3-hour class period, we managed to collect 2 pickup trucks full of trash. Everything from old TV sets seeping chemicals into the river to tires and playground equipment from the 80s. All this junk was just hiding beneath the surface. It's so easy to ignore problems that you can't see. So the students spent the remaining 2.5 weeks cleaning their garbage, organizing it, sculpting it, working with it. I assigned readings on art and the environment. We watched documentaries, including Wasteland, Bag It, and Tapped. And at the end of the 3 weeks, every single student had accomplished their task. I was so proud of them. Some of these people had never picked up a pair of pliers in their lives. So, but it's beautiful, but there's a problem. There's a problem. Because your typical undergraduate art class environment, maybe it ends with a group critique or something, and if you're lucky, there's an exhibit of student work on campus. But at the end of that, the vast majority of artwork created in the art school setting ends up in the dumpster. So for this course, I was all those resources, all that effort, all those expensive art supplies being unintentionally transformed into waste, it's totally backwards. So for this course, I had to reverse that trajectory. So first, we started with waste instead of ending with waste. And second, we installed an exhibit of their work at an off-campus public arts venue. a lot of pressure for these students. But they selected they voted for a title for their exhibit, and then they picked one of their pieces for the Evite. And then they invited as many people as they could, because it wasn't just for people's viewing pleasure. It was a silent auction with all the proceeds from the sale of their work going to their local river cleanup organization so that they could keep cleaning the rivers and expanding their scope of stewardship. What was amazing was that every single piece sold. People who had never bought an original piece of art before in their entire lives were engaged in bidding wars over student artwork. These students got to see their effort result in value. It was packed. There were 3 communities converged: the cleanup organization, the arts venue, and all the students who saw, who brought their friends, their family, and the faculty. And they all saw the value of trash in a new light. So since that night, I've been imagining what it would be like if every spring, every college on our planet cleaned every body of water in their vicinity. Earth Day is only one day. At Mary Baldwin, we only had 3 weeks. But what if colleges everywhere started offering this type of course for a full semester? Talk about spring cleaning, what we could accomplish. So the course description is available on projectvortex.org. And any school wanting to increase its social and environmental responsibility can implement it, or some version of it, But there's pretty much vast potential hiding under every surface and in every human being. We can use our heads, our hearts, and our hands to radically alter this course we are on. It's time to clarify our perception of this displaced abundance that we've been calling waste, because every aspect of our existence is truly worthy of our appreciation. And I thank you for listening.